Father Peter Grover. And we know Father Peter already is not new to us. He's been here. You remember he gave us the beautiful talk on the Acts of the Apostles. And Father, since you gave us that talk, I've always reminded the people of God of what you said, that when you see the messiness in the Acts of the Apostles, the Holy Spirit is always behind it. Maybe that's an excuse to justify my own failures and limitations. But I've always used that. And we also have as a guest Father Victor, who is accompanying Father Peter. And so I will invite us to kindly say a word of prayer. Then I will turn over to Father Peter to give us the lecture. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
in the name of the Father, and the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Let's stand up because like better visibility with that. Do I need the mic or is this all right?
Yeah.
Fine? All right, okay, good. So, vanity of vanities, all things are vanity. That's it's a famous quote that we hear in Ecclesiastes. But what does all this mean? What does the whole book mean? It sounds like the guy is on a bit of a rant. And he's not very happy with some situations. So let's go, so let's put it in perspective. So let's say you're there, you have a t-shirt on and sweatpants and flip-flops on your feet and a tin roof over your head. That's all you want. That's it. You say to yourself, well, gee, maybe I'll put some walls underneath the tin roof, and I can have somewhat of a little bit of a hut or a house. So you do that, and then you say, well, I think I'll add a couple of rooms, maybe a bathroom, maybe a little kitchen in there, and maybe a closet. No, not just a closet. I'm going to have a walk-in closet because I want to have more stuff. I want to have more clothes. So you get more clothes. And then you say, well, gee, it would be nice to have a car. So I go out and then you get a car, and you say, well, I need a snowblower in case it snows, and I get the car out of my driveway. And then you say, well, maybe it's even better if I have a garage. So then you go to the garage, and then you say, well, you got to have a lawnmower in the garage, right? What's a garage? Not a lawnmower, and some tools to fix the house with. And then you go out and you say that, gee, I got to pay for all this stuff. I got to get a better education. So then you get a nice education, and then you have more money. Then you say you go on vacation, and what are you doing? You're getting stuff. You're climbing the mountain of success. You're constantly a little bit more. You're climbing up there. So that's what you're doing. That's what we all try. We all do that in a certain sense. We all need something a little bit better, something a little bit more education, another nicer car, another vacation. So this is when I come to the mountain of success, and then you notice that there's somebody on the top of the mountain of success. So you go up there and say, hey, what's up there? Hey, how's it going? What's the view like? Because you figure you may never reach to the top of the mountain of success, and so you want to know what it's like up there. So the guy on top of the mountain of success yells down to you, Hevel of Hevel, all things are Hevel. Now Hevel is a Hebrew word, and the reason I say that because the guy on top of the mountain of success is most likely one of David's descendants. He's a king. He's most people think he's Solomon. And so there's Solomon up there at the top because he has everything. He has everything. He has all the knowledge. He has palaces, many, many wives. He has everything that you could possibly need. He has an empire that has a great expansion. He's one of the superpowers of the world. He has everything that he needs. And he says, Hevel of Hevel, all things are Hevel. So we need to know what that word Hevel means. And it doesn't mean vapor. It doesn't mean vanity. That English word is wrong. It means vapor. It means puff of smoke. And you say, well, all this stuff is just a puff of smoke. It's just, and what is vapor? Vapor is that one thing that can disappear in front of your very eyes. So what is the thing that would cause all of the stuff that Solomon has, all his knowledge and all the money and the wealth and the property he has and the people that he knows, what could possibly make all of that disappear right before his very eyes. What do you think, how that could happen?
Everything's an illusion.
Death. That's what death will do. Death takes away everything. Everything that you thought was valuable now has no value at all. So that's what this book is about. This book is really about a reflection on what happens when we die. And so let me talk a little bit about the Persians. The Persians came after the Babylonians. We know that the Babylonians were really bad guys. The Babylonians are the ones that went into Jerusalem, they destroyed Jerusalem, and they exiled all the people and brought them into this foreign land. And there, the people of God were in exile. They didn't have a home, they didn't have all their buildings were destroyed. They were separated from their families, they were living. The newspaper is in a foreign land, and they can't understand the newspaper. You know? But then the Persians came along around 50, 60 years later, and the Persians were really nice. They weren't like the Babylonians. They were so nice that they said to the Jewish people, they said, why don't you go back to your homeland? Well, we can't build it, all it's been destroyed. The Persians said, well, we'll give you money to do it. So they were so the Persians were really, really nice people to the Jews. And so they worked together. The Jews was happened to be very talented. Now the Persians, they were particular, they had a fascination with death. They wanted to understand what death was all about, so they had this particular interest in what happens when you die. What's it like? What's it feel like? What happens? Is there anything? Do you have a soul? Does it go somewhere? And so the Jews were watching their obsession with trying to understand death. So the Jews wrote their own little book on reflection on death, and that's what Ecclesiastes is. Ecclesiastes is a book that tells us a little bit about what it's like to die. And so there's a fascination for that. Now, when you read this book, there are two people involved. Right? One is the author, right? And the author is interviewing a guy that died, right? Which is Solomon. Right? So you have it. Now, the author only says one verse, only has one verse at the beginning. He introduces the guy, right? And then at the end of the book, he says, he has a little paragraph at the end, and I'm going to read it to you. Right? So there's a part, but most of the book is this interview. Most of this book is he's taking notes on this guy that just died. He's telling us what it's like with death, what happens when we die. And so now the author doesn't necessarily agree with this guy. He doesn't necessarily agree with him, but he just wants to hear what his feelings are because they're important to us. And we don't know. We've never heard anybody come back from the dead and tell us what it's like, right? So there's a fast. So that's what the book is really about, is to try to tell us what these. So the author introduces us to this person, and he calls him Koheleth. Koheleth is a Hebrew word which really means one who gathers together, like kind of what we gather together today. When people gather together, and usually that signifies a teacher, because that's what teachers do. Teachers gather people together so they can teach people. Okay, so that's why in the English translation we have a teacher. So he's here to teach us about something. And of course that thing is about what happens when you die. And it would be nice to know so that we could if you can't prepare for death, it would be nice to be able to know how you can prepare for death. And so that's what this this book is all about. So now then the teacher starts, the Koheleth, the teacher is now expanding, and he goes on to, now there's two, and he says, let me just quote, vanity of vanities, which means vapor of vapor, puff of smoke of puff of smoke. All things are just a puff of smoke. What do people gain from all their toil? At which they toil under the sun. A generation goes, a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises, the sun sets, and goes down and hurries to the place where it rises. The wind blows to the south and goes around to the north and around. The wind goes, and all its circuits, the wind returns. So it goes back and it goes back again. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, they continue to flow. All things are wearisome, more than one can express. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, or the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be. So what he's saying, in life you can't be fulfilled. You know, let's take your wallet. Take out your wallet. Let's say, for instance, at the end of the class, Father Victor is greeting everybody, and he says, I'm going to give all of you $100 for coming out tonight to listen to poor Father Peter talking about Ecclesiastes, right? So, and then you turn to go to your wallet, and you say, well, it's full. $100, I can't fit. It won't fit in the, you know, well, that never happened. It's a bottomless pit, a teenager's stomach. You can't fill that, right? It's different things. We have these containers within us that you just can't fill. So Ecclesiastes is reminding of all of this. So now the book has two sections. One talks about time. All right, so time is a measure of change. So in other words, how long does it take me to change my location? Because I want to go to California. So the time is a measure of that change from here, me going here to California. And so that's a change. Or it could be a change of knowledge. It could be a smarter person. And that takes time for me to be a smarter person. It takes me lots of time to go to school for a long period of time to get smart. So time is for Propeller, we want to build a house, we want to develop something. It's a change. A change from just a lot of land to a building. It's the time measures that. But the teacher says, well, nothing really does change. The sea never fills. You always have the ocean. You always have the river. It's just every day the sun comes up and it sets. Right? Every day the river runs through and it goes through. Every day it goes. It's the same thing. Nothing really changes. Let me give you an example of what I teach at St. John's Seminary. There's this huge rock in front of the building. It's been there since the first ice age. No one's going to budge it. And it's going to continue to be there for the next ice age. Now let's take a timeline. Let's take the first ice age and then the second ice age, and we draw an imaginary timeline along there. And I decide to say, oh gee, I wonder where I am on this timeline. So now you're going to get the biggest microscope in the world to try to see a little teeny dot on there. No, a little bit to the left, not too much. That's Caesar. We're back in the ancient times. A little bit, we're close to that's Shakespeare. No, you went too far. And to zero in on that timeline where we are in our lifespan in that timeline, we're not even a dot. Not even a little dot. You know, and then talk about space. We're this huge space, and this all of this, and we're just a tiny little dot. You know, sometimes I say mass in another church, and one of the sacristans comes in and that helps out, and every day there's a crisis. He says, oh, the coronavirus is awful. Oh, it's going to be cold. And you know, it reminds me of, that we're just a dot. Don't worry about it. We're only a little dot in this whole world and in time and everything. So Kohelet talks about time in that sense. And we are, all the things that go around us, that continue, the rock, the ocean, we're just, poof, gone. Right. Then what Kohelet is going to do is he talks about death. Right. So let me, now there's two ways you die. One is when you stop breathing. The other time you die is when no one remembers you. And death is the great equalizer. In Kohelet, basically, I was going to say that there's all, in my future, let's say I have a future, and there's a lot of possibilities. I could be Pope Peter II. I could also have a cure for baldness, and I could have thick hair. That's another possibility in my future. Another possibility in my future could be that I get to have a church near the ocean. Go fishing at night. We see all these different possibilities, and you can think of all the possibilities in your future. But in the future, there's only possibilities. There's one absolute. There's one thing in your future that you absolutely, positively know that's going to happen, and that is what?
Death.
Yes. And that's not very good. And what happens with death is it wipes out all the possibilities. Now, I'll never grow hair. I'll never be cold. I'll never have nice carriage along the ocean. And all the other possibilities are wiped out. And so this is rather a kind of a negative. So let me read a little. Now to kind of get the context of Pellet and what he's doing. So this guy is on a rant. Now, why does he seem like he's upset? Father Victor and I were talking when we were coming here, and he said, it's kind of a depressing book. Well, why is he a little, he seems like he's depressed. So why is the guy depressed? He just lost everything. He spent his whole life with all of these gains, and he lost them. He's mad because it's really vapor. All of this stuff that he thought he was accumulating, when he dies, it just turned to vapor. And he's upset. And he's telling us so let's read some of the things that he has to say about this. Remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come, and the years draw near, and they will say, I have no pleasure in them. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars are darkened, and the clouds return to rain, and the day when the guards of the house tremble, and the strong men are bent, and the women are grind cease working, because there are few, and those who look through the windows see dimly, when the doors are on the street are shut, and the sound of the grinding is low, and one rises up at the sound of the bird. All the daughters of songs are brought low. This is depressing stuff. When one is afraid of heights and the terrors are in the road, the almond tree blossoms and the grasshopper drags itself along and desires veils, because all must go to the eternal home, and the mourners will go about the streets. Before the silver cord is snapped, and the golden bowl is broken, and the pitcher is broken at the fountain, and the wheel broken at the cistern, and the dust returns to the earth as it was, and the breath returns to God who gave it. Hebel of Hebel, vapor of vapor, puff of smoke, says the teacher, everything is just a puff of smoke. So that's pretty negative. But I tell the story that when my mother passed away, my father got a tombstone, and he asked me, he says, do you want to see the tombstone? My mother's grave, I want to buy the flowers there. And I said, yeah. So as we were driving there, my father said to me, he said, well, I actually bought 4 plots, one for your father and I, one for you and your brother. And so we got there, he says, I'm going to go get some water, so we took the watering can. And so I'm standing there looking at the stone, and I'm looking at it, and I just realized that I was standing on my own grave. Have you ever stood on your own grave? Yeah. Well, you get thoughts, right? And someday I'm going to be lowered, right? This is where I'm going to end up. Someday they're going to lower me. And so I thought about that day, and I figured that I'll have some people, some of the faithful in my church might come, some of my colleagues, my brother priest, my religious order might be there, and some of the ushers that will be there helping carry my casket will stand around waiting for and maybe when they're around, they'll say some nice words to me. Maybe some of them will say that he was a nice guy, and some of them may say, maybe some of them will offer a prayer for me. Some of them may just say, gee, I wish he was still here with us. So there'll be some well wishes and nice words, but none of them can help me. I'm going to be in the hole, and there's nothing they can do about it. There's a story of a guy that's a story of a guy going in the hole, and he's stuck in the hole and can't get out. And then he sees something. Then he heard somebody pass by. He says, "Oh, hey, oh, help me, help me!" So it was an auto mechanic, and the mechanic said that, "Well, I don't have a rope on me, but what I can do is I can give you 15% off on your next oil change." So the next guy comes by and he says, "Oh, can you help me?" He says, "Well, I'm a doctor. I don't have any, but I can give you a prescription in case the next time you get a headache, you have to slows that down." So finally he comes by and says, "Oh, I'm so glad to see you. How did you get out here?" And the guy jumps into the hole with him. He said, "What did you do that for? What did you stop?" And the guy said, "Well, don't worry. I've been here before. I know how to get out." So that's the thing. So I'm in the hole, right? And there I am. And all these people say nice things. They can't do anything about it. But there's one person in my life. There's one person in my life that says, I'll come back to you and take you to myself. So that where I am, you also will be. There's one person in my life that can say, I am the resurrection of the life. There's one person. Now that's the kind of the point that so anyway, after this long rant of this guy who lost everything he had, the author now comes to the author who doesn't necessarily agree with everything that he says in principle, but he does have something to say at the end. This is what he says. Now the author of the book speaks. Besides being wise, the teacher also taught the people knowledge, weighing and studying and arranging and proverbs. The teacher sought to find pleasing words and wrote words of truth. The sayings of the wise are like goads, and like nails firmly fixed are the collection sayings given by the shepherd. Anything beyond these, my child, beware of making many books. There is no end, and much study is a weariness of the flesh. The end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God, keep his commandments, and that is the whole duty of everyone. God will bring every deed, judgment, including every secret thing, whether good or evil. So he puts everything in perspective. So what's exactly what he's saying here? God, there is something that does have value when we die. Now, most of the stuff we come in contact turns into vapor, right? But there are a few things. There is something out there that doesn't devalue when we die. That's always there. And what do you think that is? It's God. Okay, so the wonderful thing about the New Testament is that we finally have a guy that died and came back from the dead. Right? So we finally have somebody that's really experienced death, who's really experienced what it's like to die, and then can come back and tell us what it's like to die, and what death is like. Right? And who is that person? That one person that came back from death and came back to life. That person who could tell us what death is like. Exactly. Yeah. Right. So now notice what Jesus, when he came back to tell us what death is like, did he go on a rant? Did he say vanity, vanities, all things are vanity, everything just wipes out everything? No. Do you know why he didn't say that? Because he didn't own anything. They took his clothes. He had no house, he had no wife, kids. He had no. What did Jesus have? He had nothing to turn into anything. Nothing. What he did have, though, was his power. So when he came back, he didn't rant because he didn't lose anything. He didn't have anything. But he did have his power. So when he comes back, look at Christ when he came back in John's Gospel. What does he do? He's cooking breakfast on the beach with a charcoal fire. After he caught fish, because he had fish, he went fishing. So the guy went fishing, he's now having breakfast on the beach. The guy's on vacation, right? You think that he would have some axe to grind? Like he'd be mad at Pilate, the people that I would want to get some new disciples because they abandoned me, right? That they denied me and betrayed me and they left me. Nothing. This is a guy it seems like he's fishing out gifts. He says, now put the net on the right side and you'll catch lots of fish. And they do, they catch lots of fish. And then he gets Peter, makes Peter Pope. Right? He says, Peter, you're the shepherd, feed my sheep. And he says, Jesus is in a pretty good mood. He's dishing out all these gifts, all these nice things. But what better is it to have breakfast on the beach with your best friend who was dead a week ago? Does it get any better than that? He's giving you all of these wonderful things. And so you're saying to yourself, what is it what's Jesus saying to us? He said, there is something that has value after you die, that death cannot destroy what? God, your relationship with God, your connection with God. And that's why Jesus is such a good mood. And that's why Solomon was in such a sour mood when he came back to tell us what death was like. Because he had all this stuff, right? And he lost it. Jesus didn't lose anything. He didn't have anything. The one thing he had was his wonderful relationship with his Father. He didn't lose that. He had it, and he's able. That's the message of Kohelet. That's really the message of Ecclesiastes, is to get our perspective I'm going to close with this last thought. 100 years from now, let's say 1,000 years from now, 1,000 years from now, you're going to be there and you're going to look back, and we're going to look down and you're going to say, gee, I wonder what happened to that engagement ring that I had, the beautiful, the big diamond on it. And you look down and see it, somebody lost it and it's in the sewer. And you say, well, that book, I wonder what happened to the book that I wrote that everybody was reading at the time. You get it now, and you look back and you find out you get it for $1 on Amazon.com. It's now our friend who reads it. And then all of that money, so all the money that you saved for a family, and your kids and grandkids, they took it and they spent it on boats, on clothing, and it's gone. They wiped it out, they cleaned it out. And you're going to look back and you're going to say, what was valuable? What was valuable during my, that hasn't affected me today? And that's the question we got to ask. What are we doing today that's going to affect us 1,000 years from now? Building up a bank account, making a nice house. What today? That's really what Coppellant is really on, is to get us to think about beyond just the everyday problems that we have, the concerns and everything. Because the sun's going to rise and going to set where we go. And so this is so seeing things from the point of view from the big picture. Seeing things that, what's really important. When I die, I don't want to be venting and mad because I lost everything. I want to be happy because I had something that was valuable to me, and I still have it. That didn't take it away. I still got it. And that's what's going to make me happy in the future. So that's where I want to spend my energy. That's where I want to spend my time. That's where I want to spend that's my real goal in life, is to build up this relationship, because death can't take it away. Right? Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. What do you think of the book? Did you like it? Yeah, they can read it and get something out of it. Should I ask you were?
Yeah, thank you very much, Father, for that beautiful presentation of Ecclesiastes, and I think you set all of us thinking. When you said 1,000 years from today, maybe what some of us have written might not be up to a penny on Amazon. I thought the book I was presently writing, and wondering when I was working. But thank you for giving us the perspective that after everything, the relationship with God is what matters. And that is what I believe will stay with most of us. So I'm now open for questions, for reactions, whatever you wish to answer. Father, please, follow us.
I had a question. I was wondering, the people of the day, did they believe in a heaven and a hell type situation, or when they wrote that, or was that in their thought process?
The Persians that were really fascinated with that. I'm not sure what their belief system was, but the resurrection wasn't really. They didn't have a concept of a body resurrection. People would live on through their kids. That's why you had that. That's why you wanted to have kids, because they can carry your name, your legacy. If you have let's say you have a really good pizza shop, you have the best pizza in the city, in Salem, and you're not going to give the secret recipe to the competition. Right? You're going to give it to your kids so they can carry on your legacy, so that even when you retire or you die, they'll still enjoy your pizza. I know, because I grew up in Norwood, and there was a place called Sacco's Pizza, and it was delicious pizza. It was Greek. It was run by a Greek family, and I went back there with my brother a few years ago, which is like, we're now 60, so that was like 50 years ago we had the pizza, and it's exactly the same. Yes, because they carried on the legacy. So it's the same, the table's a little different, but it's the same sign, the same pizza formula, and that's what it is to carry. So that's what the Jews thought of. That's how you live on. It's going to be live on through your family, keeping your name, and your company, and your skills alive. Even though you're not here to do them, your sons are doing them, and their sons pass it on to their sons. So that's kind of how things work. Yeah. Thank you for the question. Yeah, that's great.
Just kind of a comment. When I was signing up, and somebody else was there, and I said, oh, you're going to sign up for that? And he said, oh, well, yeah, we really want to know about Ecclesiastes. And I thought, oh, I think it will be, interesting, but it certainly is interesting, much more than just when I read it, which I just read Pastor Days again, and it's like, all right, and everything is guaranteed, which we know. But now their last comment, like, the thing is to keep the commandments and to believe in, well, I don't know, it said believe in God.
Fear God. Fear God.
Fear God, right. And, now, because they didn't necessarily have to, their belief was not what they had to, they did believe God, but not necessarily believe in the Messiah that they were awaiting.
Well, the Messiah was a king, and they had that. They knew that the Davidic line was a promise that God was given them. So that promise would continue to be fulfilled. Does anybody know what fear of the Lord means? Reverence, yeah. So the way it works, if you're practicing, if you have fear of the Lord. You want to know how you know you have fear of the Lord? Is when you fear nothing except God. Because you realize that God is so big and so powerful that you're not worried about anything else. It's like, oh, I got God. That's so it's not being afraid of anything. Because you know how powerful God is, and God is with you, and that's the confidence and the hope, just a person of great hope. So if you have somebody that is so connected with God that you don't fear anything, nothing, then you have fear. That's what it is. It's the basis for wisdom. It's the basis for wisdom. So it's really so that's the test. That's how you test whether or not you have it in your person or not. Okay.
I just keep looking, that feeling of you stand on your own way.
Yeah.
The only twist that I didn't put my name on it.
Yeah.
So all 3 of my children would put my name on there. So I said to them, what happens if one of you die first?
Yeah.
You should have seen the look on
Oh,
their face. I want to be first. And then I'm late because I really didn't know whether I wanted to come or not. What's what Ecclesiastes is going to show me? And I've been speaking to Father. There comes a time, I'm 78.
Yeah.
Where am I going? What am I doing? Am I doing this because it's what I was taught as a child? Or do I believe in what I'm doing? And part of the reason I came was because to see, how you're going to, I looked quickly at the forward. I haven't read it again. But there comes a time when you really know. I went to Arizona to see my grandchildren. Believe it or not, the oldest is 6 feet 4, the other is 5 feet 7. Hi, Grandma, they give you a hug 5 minutes later, you're gone. I just spent 6 hours in the air going to you. Oh yeah, hi, Grandma. And that feeling of people not being aware of it happens as you age. And then, well, you're really kind of too much trouble, so we'll prop you up on the corner and leave you there. You're not propping me up on the corner. But I thank you for explaining this, because it shows that what you really know in your heart is everything.
Yeah.
Everything. And we're nothing. It's amazing. Thank you.
I'm going back to the question about Jews and their concept of afterlife. They must have had something beyond just their heredity. I mean, they did have some I don't know what it is, if it was something about the show route, and I never understood what that.
Yeah, it's a Sheol, it's a place for the bones of the dead, where they abide, it's a state of, I'm not really sure, do you know how to explain Sheol? No, but,
I think for the Jews, they saw Sheol as the place of the dead, and it's the place of the forgotten. Before the exile, once you are dead, you are dead. That's what I was trying to say, because after the exile, the Persians came, this concept of resurrection came up. In fact, even in the time of Jesus, remember there were people who believed in the resurrection, like the Pharisees, and there were some others who did not believe, and St. Paul actually used that in his own favor. So initially, when Cordelia was written, the concept was once you believe the dead, because that's just it, like everything, faithful, that's what I was trying to explain. But much later, after the exile, the mixture with the Persians and all of that, then the concept of the afterlife came up, and the Israelites introduced that into Judaism. So as to answer your question directly, Sheol is the place of the dead, the place of the forgotten. Once you are there, nothing concerns anybody, you are just there, you're forgotten, and then life continues. And that was what I was trying to say about Ecclesiastes. Once you die, you stop breathing, or people stop remembering you. And that's the reason they try to bring this into their children to carry on that legacy. Just as I was trying to explain.
So, when this was written, with that in mind, you're dead. How does the epilogue come into that then? Because the epilogue itself is very hopeful. So, how are they connecting into it?
Yeah, that was what I was trying to explain, that he didn't really agree with the author that was talking. So he had his own understanding, and he's trying to put everything into perspective. What is very most important is to fear God, trust in God. So usually when you have the books of the Bible written at different times, do you have some editorial additions or corrections just to try to suit the audience at the time? So I think that is what I was trying to say, that he didn't agree with what I was trying to say, and he tried to put everything in perspective, and that is what we go on.
So was the epilogue then written later than the original text?
No, it's part of it.
It was part of it.
Yeah, yeah. So there's two characters. The author is just taking notes, like another guide, and making comments on those notes at the end, sort of something like that. By the way, Father Victor teaches at the seminary in Nigeria for years, and then he came over here and he's teaching here with biblical studies, and so it's nice to have a friend that loves the Bible. We can talk about it, we can get along with it tonight.
I would just like to make a comment. I want to thank you, because when I read Ecclesiastes some time ago, it was a real downer.
Oh yeah.
Put it nicely. Yeah, I look at it differently in a much better light now. So when I read it again, I will have definitely a positive.
Yeah, you'll see. Yeah.
Is there something you say to people who have no relationship? They, not that they're trying to apply things or anything, it's just like, hey, that's it, that's the end, and I don't care, I know we have belief and that we're going to be, living with,
The best advertising is a happy customer. So just enjoy living the life that God gave us. And they're going to say, well, you're happy, or what's going on? They're really drawn to it. That's the best way. That's why the Psalms are all about rejoicing. And what are they happy over there in the church and all singing? And what are they all like? I want some of that. that's the idea of drawing people to God. Is you can't do it by being a sad sack or complaining. You're never going to do that. It's always going to be. It's always when you read the Psalms. Always people rejoicing. Always people. Oh, God's so wonderful. Look at all the stuff He does for me. I'm so happy. And that's what's going to bring people to God and to so.
So as far as dying goes, how does this fit in with the communion of saints? And, praying to saints, and, they're obviously not forgotten, they're there. And they love us, especially my parents. If I'm very in trouble, I could be, in a dream, they'll come to me. Together, too.
Yeah, no, that's why we have the community. That's why we're a church that now there's a resurrection, and so that's a little bit different situation when they were writing how the author was writing in that Christ and saints.
So this is the Jewish or the Old Testament.
Yeah, this writing was way back before during the Second Temple period, which is like 800 BC. Several hundred years before Christ.
Now, someone reading this could look at it entirely differently and read it like a get out of jail free card. Like, nothing really matters, and what if it did? God loves you anyway. Anything you did in your life, yes, don't be attached to all the good things. But on the flip side of that, someone could look at it and read it in such a way that something that I did that really matters either, does it?
Get out of free card means you don't have to do anything, but the author here gives us homework. Fear God and keep the commandments. That's you're establishing a relationship. Right? Yeah, judgment. So that's a tall order. That instead of focusing on the ladder of success, the mountain of success, making sure that that relationship with God is really strong, because when you die, you do have something valuable in your life, which is God. And that the way you keep that relationship is you fear the Lord and keep the commandments. Which is another way of saying, love God, love neighbor. Want to close it here? Oh, well done.
Any more reactions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we are sure that we will still be needing you around.
Oh, yeah.
Now, we need you around. So our next Bible discussion will be on the Song of Songs. The Song of Songs.
Yeah, I want to go to that.
Yeah, and I hope that Father will already invited you. So I'll be reaching out to you by email. So Father, will you give us a blessing?
Oh, yes. May the Lord be with you. May Almighty God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thanks for having us. Thank you.